You ever look at the current political system and just think, this isn't working for most of us? Well, you're definitely not alone. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating piece by an author named Portico Darwin. And he doesn't just point out the problems, he's actually designed a full-on blueprint for a new American political party. He calls it the Real Party, and the whole idea is to fix a system that he sees as fundamentally broken. And this quote right here, this is really the whole starting point. The author's making the case that there's this huge, quiet majority of Americans, in the political center, who are just fed up with all the fighting. They just want a government that actually works. It's a call for a unifying force in what feels like a super divided country. So, he takes that frustration and channels it into what he first called a fantasy political party. But it's not just a daydream. He's fleshed it out with a name, a real platform, and a super clear set of principles. He's basically asking, does this have to stay a fantasy? And here it is, the Real Party. Now, that's not just a name, it's an acronym. It stands for Rational, Ethical, Actual, and Leadership. You can see right away, just from the name, that the goal is to be the complete opposite of the current political mood. It's less about a rigid ideology and way more about a basic code of conduct. So what does it even mean to be real? Well, according to the author, it boils down to two main things: unity and reality. The whole idea is to get candidates who speak the truth, who don't just lean on manufactured outrage, and who, as he puts it, act like human beings. It's a plea for authenticity in a world that feels full of political theater. Okay, so a philosophy is great, but a party needs a platform, right? It needs actual policies. The author lays out the core ideas in what he calls the Great Eight. So let's dig into the specific, concrete policies this real party would actually push for. The first four planks are, wow, pretty ambitious. First up, tackling wealth inequality head-on with some very specific tax proposals. Then, you've got a plan to make Social Security solvent by getting rid of the income cap on the tax. Number 3 is all about fiscal responsibility, taking a hard look at defense spending and means testing some entitlements. And finally, number 4 gets right to the heart of our elections, a federal ban on gerrymandering. And the list keeps going with some real heavy hitters. Number 5 targets the influence of big money in politics by going after Citizens United. Next, it calls for a national minimum wage that's actually a living wage. The platform also takes on healthcare costs, giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices and banning all those pharma ads you see on TV. And lastly, it wades into the tech world by reforming Section 230, specifically for content that social media algorithms push to the top of your feed. Now, if you're wondering why overturning Citizens United is such a big deal for the author, just look at this chart. It's kind of a head-scratcher, right? Congressional approval is in the tank, down at 20%, but somehow a staggering 97% of incumbents get reelected. He presents this as Exhibit A for a broken system, where the will of the voters has taken a backseat to money and power. So that's the Great Eight. But how would this whole real philosophy actually apply to bigger, more complicated issues? Well, the author doesn't leave us hanging. He provides 2 really detailed policy frameworks to show us what this would look like in the real world. And before we dive into those, there's this really fascinating and transparent disclosure he makes. The author states, up front, that he used artificial intelligence to generate these policy summaries based on his prompts. It's a pretty modern way to build policy, and he kind of suggests the results are, well, smarter than what we're currently getting. And here's what that approach looks like in practice. On the left, you've got a balanced budget plan that tackles the huge deficit with a straight 50-50 split of new revenue and spending cuts. Simple. On the right, an intelligent immigration policy built on 5 clear pillars, balancing our economic needs with our humanitarian duties. These aren't just vague talking points. They're structured, thought-out frameworks. So, after laying out this whole vision, the philosophy, the platform, these detailed policy examples, the author brings it all home. He cuts right to the chase and gets to his single most important point, and he does it by anticipating a question you're probably already asking. Exactly. You're probably thinking, okay, that's all fine, but what about the other massive issues? What about climate change, or gun control, or universal health care? The Great Eight is a big list, but it doesn't cover everything. So what's the real party's answer to that? And this right here, this slide is the answer. It's the absolute core of the entire proposal. The author's argument is that we can't meaningfully fix any of those other huge problems until we fix the system itself.
He circles all the way back to planks number 4 and 5, banning gerrymandering and overturning Citizens United, and says these aren't just policy goals, they are the absolute prerequisites for making any real progress on anything else.
This final quote just says it all, doesn't it? The whole argument is that our system is too gummed up with money and partisan games to solve the big stuff. So the first step isn't to have another debate on climate policy, it's to fix the democratic process itself so an honest debate can actually happen. It all comes back to stopping the corruption and getting real.
So there you have it, the detailed vision from Portico Darwin. It's a really comprehensive, thought-provoking plan, and it leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. Is a bold third party like this the actual key we need to unlock political gridlock and find some unity? Or is it, like the author himself first called it, just a compelling but ultimately unreachable political fantasy?